The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on analytics and retail, presented by Marcy Patzer and Dr. Stefan Menger. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Marcy. She's going to talk a little bit about customer engagement and retail at DSE, and then Stefan will talk about analytics. I ask you to hold your questions until the end, or if you need to post them in the questions box, I'll be monitoring them, and we will have a short Q&A session at the end, and also any other questions we don't answer on this call, we will answer via email. So right now I'm going to pass it over to Marcy.
Hi, everybody. Megan, let me know when my screen is showing.
Yep, you're good.
Perfect. So hello. Kind of an interesting webinar because some of you we saw at DSE, which was fantastic. Some of you we did not, but we've had long relationships. I know we have a lot of partners on the call today. So what I wanted to do was share a little bit quick, high-level scope of Scala, get into some of our tools, and then just kind of do a review about DSE this year. We're really focusing on customer engagement, analytics, understanding what's happening in the environment. We know that digital media is one piece of the overall customer experience. And so how does that piece affect the greater good of what we're trying to accomplish with design and lighting and the path to purchase? So with that, what I said so much at DSE when we walk through the booth and did tours is that, I don't like to productize and say, here is our Fling app, exactly how it is, this is what we sell. What we like to do is look at our open platform and say, what would you like to do? How do you want to engage with your customer? So as we walk through, we can kind of keep that in mind. Quick overview of who Scala is. History, we've been around for 25 years. We actually celebrated our anniversary last October, so we're extremely proud of that fact. We have a deep bench. We're very fortunate to have over 450 Scala certified partners globally. And the deep bench also kind of comes back to our company as well. Of our 125 employees, 36 are dedicated to research and development. And that's all they do. And the reason for that is because we are so focused on software. And that kind of, again, goes back to our partner channel. Scala, our whole focus has always been since day one is the software platform. How can we make it as flexible and as adaptable as possible? And then we look to our partners, number one, to help grow the platform and work with end customers to really tweak it and make it perfect for their environment and their workflow. But then also when it comes to hardware, the installation, the service, that's where our partners really come to play. When we do surveys of our customer base, and we ask them, what do you think about Scala? And, what words would you use to describe us? The two words that always come back are stable and scalable. So we're very proud of that. Hardware flexibility. 25 years ago when we started this platform and thinking about what we were going to do with the software, we wanted to make sure that we weren't locking anyone in. And so through our hardware flexibility, we're actually able to balance your budget and your content demands. And that's proven for many customers to save lots of money down the road, especially as they have, some great buying power with, partners of ours such as Dell and Open and HP. Network flexibility. You can own the software. You can SaaS the software. Our partners have programs similar to that. So we're very flexible in even how you deploy. Open architecture. I think that I've kind of nailed that with our open API. And then continuous evolution. One of the things that we're pretty proud of is we want to be ready for whatever that customer is now thinking of. We have a rigorous Q&A process, and we don't release software until it's truly ready for the marketplace and for the mass to use it. And so, we're proud of the fact that 2 years ago at NRF, we were showing NFC integration. We're about to launch our Android platform, even when a lot of the Android devices that are coming out haven't even hit market yet. But our software is ready for that. So again, having that R&D team really focused on our platform has allowed us to kind of be ahead of the curve, we feel. We are a global company. The Scala bangs represent offices, and we're fortunate to have clients globally. Some of the things that make us different, again, I feel like I'm beating a horse here, but 25 years of innovation and leadership. We're committed, very mature, very flexible. And, you know, Frost & Sullivan, we're actually really proud of this. To have remarks such as this from them, you know, really means a lot. You know, there's a lot of rumors out in the industry, and we've been around for so long, and, you know, what have you done? And but to have Frost & Sullivan really say, listen, you know, they're the ones to watch for. And I love the one, Scala has built a commanding lead in an industry that is seeking with as many companies entering the market as they're heading for the exit. So we're really proud of how long we've been here. So quickly, let me just take you through a high level of our software. So we have the Content Manager, which is right in the middle, and that's your hub. That's where all your scheduling, that's where a lot of metadata happens. We have Scala Designer. This is a tool that you can use. You don't have to use it. It's actually been the differentiator in quite a few projects just because of its flexibility. In the QSR market, it's amazing. You can bring Photoshop files in, InDesign files. Layers are intact, so you can make quick and easy templates. We're working with a high-end retailer right now, and they have a ton of shots from the web. Again, omni-channel. How can we use some of our existing assets but make them in a digital sense? Scala Designer has a ton of inherent transitions built in. So now we can actually put some pretty great motion paths to some of those static assets and pull those into Designer. And then the endpoint, everything from touchscreen kiosks to video walls. Over on the right, you see, you know, a bus with GPS. So as they're getting close to a location, relevant advertisements start to play. Here's a quick screenshot of Designer. Content Manager, and this is actually our existing user interface. We're actually coming out, I believe it's the beginning of Q2 with our brand new user interface, which again we debuted at DSE and got some rave reviews about. HTML5 is also going to be supported in an LDAP integration. This just shows some of our open APIs. I think the biggest thing I want to talk about with the open APIs is the fact that we have a developers wiki. And for all you partners on the phone, if by chance you don't have access to that, let us know. It's pretty amazing. It has sample scripts, sample tools. You know, our goal in life is to allow you to utilize the platform to the fullest extent. We're here to help you, absolutely, but we're also here to train and teach you how to use it so that you can really be off and running. And then our player. We spoke about the flexible platforms at the end. Obviously, it's store and forward. You can use everything from a you know, low-cost media player, even some with a built-in screen that are great, all the way up to, you know, monitors that have multiple graphics cards so we can run, you know, the LED wall out in London, Piccadilly Square, or New York Times Square. Here's another shot of some of our hardware, and soon you'll see the Android over to the left. But really, again, balancing your budget and your content demands is what we focus on. So with that, customer experience, that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, and I'm going to show some pictures in just a minute about DSE and how we kind of went after that customer experience. Oracle research reveals that 81% of shoppers are willing to pay more for customer experience. There's top 5 changes, and I think that the first and last really speak to us today. The first is 40% improvement in the overall customer experience, and 20% providing customers with a more tailored, personalized shopping experience. And this actually gets right into what Stefan's going to be talking about. You know, on the web, there are cookies, and we know where you are, and we know where you've been, and we can promote things to you. And unfortunately, in the store, there are no cookies. So how can we give that personalized shopping experience? We'll get into a couple of examples, but I really think a lot of it's going to come down to analytics and understanding, you know, through all these various data points, what are these causal relationships, and how can we start to predict what that customer is here for based on time of day and economy and all these other good things. So I'll leave that to Stefan to talk about, but you know, that's definitely a big focus for us. So showrooming, everyone's talking about showrooming and you know, is it the death of retail? And we actually think that you should be embracing showrooming with technologies, with the extension of digital media and how you can personalize it. How can we embrace it and really make it work for us? Love the fact that Forbes reported in 2012 more people purchased smartphones than PCs. I actually did a talk at DSE and used kind of my family, if you saw that, and how technology is embracing all of our lives. And I think even last year, this is a big jump in the industry because even last year, QRs weren't as widely accepted. The technology within retail, it wasn't being as widely adopted by the consumer. But what we're seeing is that not only is technology permeating our lives in retail, but in our everyday lives as well, in the automobile manufacturing, and having, detectors tell you before I'm drowsy and automatically, reducing the speed of my car. And so we think that as technology starts permeating our overall lives, it's going to be an expected thing within retail. So again, embracing showrooming, the opportunity to provide value add. Really showrooming, what they're finding is that the person, they want that immediate gratification, but gosh, I can save $5 more if I just buy it on my phone right here or buy it online. And so what can we do to balance that? Balance the immediate gratification in getting that best deal. We're not saying you have to discount. We're not saying, throw that money away. What if it's service? What if it's the value add of being in the store and really pushing that immediate gratification? You can provide deeper knowledge, you can create a better experience, and as with our Fling app and the QR, a little bit of magic never hurts in the retail environment. So here's some of the things that we were talking about at DSE. This is the Samsung Clear Glass, which I'm sure many of you have seen. Really, to us, we view it as a monitor. It's simply another device for us to utilize for digital media. I actually think it's great, and you really have to have great content for it. But it also comes in a touch surface. And again, we're not selling hardware here, but I think there was a misnomer in the industry that this was, a proprietary piece. We're saying let's be inventive. Let's think about the different ways to use all sorts of technology. Our platform absolutely extends. This is Clive, and he just finished a webinar, which if you log back in, you can actually get a clip of that, and that is showing, he took you through on the webinar, I believe it was 2 days ago, through our whole new user interface. But this is him actually doing the presentation at the floor of DSE. But the reason I wanted to show this is because I think this wall back behind, and really talking about the larger monitors, and then there's the smaller monitors. Again, we're working with a lot of design firms right now because technology is always best, placed within the overall customer experience, and how are these little touch points all going to add up to one larger message and one greater good. And so again, having a message and kind of this digital experience where you have the larger monitors, it's bringing you down to the smaller, and it's one continuous conversation. Again, I think that's extremely valuable. This is fantastic. This is Bloomberg. We have a phenomenal partner who has been writing the herd on this project, and this is actually an example of what is in their New York headquarters. What I love about this is that simply by using the metadata and the rules that are inherent in the platform, this is all done with live data. There is no human interaction. Oh gosh, the stock market's up, quick, change the screen to blue. Oh, it's down, change it to red. Everything is done with data. So we set our rules, we set our parameters, and as the live data feeds come in, it's automatically editing what the background is, what the color is, what the look and feel is. There's a temperature where when the temperature comes in, if it's a beautiful morning, we have a background of the sun and the clouds. And, so again, how can we utilize what's inherent in the platforms in terms of metadata and rules and really change our digital effort, without a lot of human intervention. So I love this one. Oh, this is our big screen out front, Christie Microtiles. And we were showing quite a few things on this. Last year at DSE, we released our QR code. And everyone knows that QR codes, you can snap it and get web information. Okay, that's great. Well, last year we said, what if you could actually take control of the player? So what we were saying was snap a QR, and now the Scala player behind the scenes, my phone is actually a remote control. And as a customer, let's take an easy example of grocery. I'm at the end cap, and there's a whole end cap of mayonnaise, and they're doing the playlist right now is a guy making tuna salad, and I hate tuna, but I snap this QR code, and all of a sudden, all these recipes come up of all these different things I can make with this product. So I simply click one on my phone, and the playlist changes. And then I can pull up the recipe. Now I can snap the recipe down to my phone. So this is personalization. Without knowing who that person is, I'm now speaking to them directly. So this year at DSE, we had a similar thing, QR code. We snapped the QR code. And what we actually were doing was voting on products. So we had a live tally right there of who liked which product best. Great, crowdsourcing. But then we could actually go to Facebook and post what we like. Now I'm driving people to your site. Now I may want to like that. And so, bringing in the social media element, we have one partner that's actually doing photography through Scala, and through our site, they're pushing a button, and it takes the consumer's picture, throws it to their Facebook page. I go to the Facebook page. I'm now their friend. Now it comes online, and it's interesting how we're pulling social, we're pushing social, and we're pulling social into the retail environment. And then this was the Samsung Galaxy, and this is actually where I'm going to pass to Stefan, because this is actually where Stefan pretty much lived the whole time at DSE. What we were doing is list technology, and I'm sure you've all seen it before. Anything to us is a trigger, especially anything with a serial port command. Anything is a trigger. And so by lifting a phone, immediately the messaging changed. I'm going to list two phones. Immediately, I get a comparison of what these two phones and the products are. So now that we're doing customer engagement within the store, now that we're starting to personalize that experience, how can we measure that? And so at that point, I'm going to pass it over to Stefan so he can start talking about analytics and how we're taking the message past simply, I've shown an advertisement in the store, and here's my POS data. There's a lot of false positives there. So Stefan's going to tell you how we've invested to get past there.
Yeah, thanks, Marcy. So let me just take over the screen here. 1 second. Okay. Oh, come on. So, Marcy or Megan, can you just give me feedback if you can see my screen now?
I sure can.
Okay, wonderful. So, good morning, everyone. As Marcy said, I'd like to go more into how we measure things, how we can use measurements to personalize the experience. And I also explained a little bit what we did at DSE for those of you who weren't there and for those of you who stopped by, so we go into more details. So I'm going to talk about the Scala Intended Signage, so that's the product name of our analytics product. And here we go. So as Marcy already said, is that a shopper experience is a very important thing. And when you look at this picture here, this photo, you will see that digital signage lives in a context. And the context is that we have digital signage of various shapes, forms, sizes. Here in this case, a very large tile screen. But it competes also for the customer's attention with some merchandising you see down in the lower part, with some printed posters and so on. So it's very important to realize that we live in a world and we can't see digital signage as an isolated thing. So what is important is that we as business owners, we want to influence our customers where and when it matters. And that can be, like in this example, a cell phone store that we also presented at DSE, that can be at the point when people are looking at the actual cell phone, they're picking them up, they're looking at what the screen size is, what the features are, they're weighing them in their hands and really getting some feel about this. And at that point in time, we want to use digital signage, for example, to support them with information, with recommendations about the product itself, or probably even upsell message and say, hey, have you thought about buying this accessory to your cell phone? Or on the left-hand side, what you see here, this wine rack, where we can pass on information, recommendations, and messages to our customers at the point of decision. That is where the customers experiences the product, and that is where they're going to decide, okay, I'm going to put this in my basket or not going to put this in my basket, for that matter. So, but there's a challenge. When we talk to retailers, we find that they mainly use digital signage as a replacement of posters. So good old paper print poster, and they hang up screens, but they operate them pretty much in the same way. Yeah, they add some movement, but the mindset seems to be still that retailers think, yeah, it's just a glorified and more comfortable kind of poster. And that means the retailers create a customer experience in store that really doesn't exploit and doesn't use all the things that digital signage can do. In particular, they create an experience in store typically without data and without insight what is really happening there. And that also means they're not optimizing their activities, their digital signage related activities, against any metrics. So what works and what doesn't work? Does a particular ad work? Doesn't it work? And what should I display? And the reason for that, when we look around, and also there have been studies around, are typically lack of processes and resources. So either the retailers don't know how to handle this, or they simply don't have the resource, or sometimes they don't have the knowledge. And by the way, when I'm talking about retailers and stores and so on, I think it's not too much. I use this as an example for the purpose of this presentation here, but obviously all the concepts apply also to, for example, restaurants, quick service restaurants, and other business verticals. So I just want to make that point clear. So here's an example that we have a digital sign close to a quick service restaurant table. And when you look at those two ladies at the lower left corner, you see that the body language even tells you that they are absolutely not engaged with a digital sign. They don't look at that. So that means the sign is irrelevant. That one lady in green, she is probably texting, and the other one, I can't really see, but I think she's taking a zip here. But that is exactly the point. If we don't use digital sign, and we don't optimize digital sign, we don't display something that is relevant to the person that might be looking at that, we have a serious problem here. And all of that leads to a vicious circle. So typically we do something, the retailer do something without any data. So they hang up screens, yeah, where it fits, not necessarily where it makes sense, but where it fits. But even if they have data, well, they don't use the data to create insight, to really understand what's going on. And insight always lives in a context. That means I have to understand, where does that happen? Under what circumstances do things happen? Where, for example, here in the States, what's the climate? Is it warm? Is it cold? What is the weather? Something like that. And that means even if I have the context, if I know that I have a store somewhere in Texas as opposed to have a store in frosty Maine, well, if I don't take action on that, then we close the vicious circle. We really don't put all the things together, and that's the important part that I want to explain here. Now, hold on, my mouse just get up 1 second. So the irony of this all is that analytics is pretty much everywhere. And when we look at e-commerce, that we find that people in the e-commerce space have used analytics for a long time now, over 10 years, to create recommendations, to create targeted messaging. Here, just a simple example for Amazon. If I type in the here Brown Series 7 in the search box, it immediately comes up with some recommendations. Other people have bought this and other people looked at these items. So what that means is we can use data from past viewing, from past shopping experience, from past purchases, that is, to predict and to use that what would be interesting and nice for me as a consumer to see. So in short, in retail, past purchasing behavior can indeed serve as a prediction for the near future. It's only the question of looking at the right things and then getting that information and transforming that into insight and putting that into context. An example here. This is real customer traffic in a mall, broken down by age groups and gender and day of the week. And it becomes immediately clear that there is a cluster on Thursday, so senior males seem to come on Thursday much more often than any other time of the day. And the size of the squares is a measure for how many people are there at a given point in time. So I don't know why that is, and that would be interesting on its own, but that really doesn't matter. But I know that fact. So if I have a direct measurement of customer traffic or an indirect measurement, if I look at point of sales data and the point of sales data tells me, well, at noontime, early afternoon on a Thursday, I always tend to sell more stuff that is geared towards seniors. Well, that tells me something. So I can look at the data I have in my store, point of sales data, customer loyalty information, if I have this, and use that and detect patterns and draw conclusions from there. So what predictive analytics does is it takes the actionable data, as I've described a few seconds ago, some examples of, and delivers precise and targeted messages. And because what we all want in the end, we want to drive our customers to desired actions, to buy more profitable things, to upsell. How do we do this? So first a little bit more about the data. Obviously, we all know where our stores are. It's a physical location, and that can be either nationwide or international, or it can be several stores in a certain town or metropolis. We all have point of sales data. So that already is a huge treasure we need to look at. A lot of retailers, a lot of restaurants have some sort of customer info, either directly through customer loyalty card or indirectly, even going back to point of sales data. And then we have to put this together with digital signage data. So we have our digital signage data. We know what we have displayed when and where. And we can use, for example, Scala system to generate logs. What has been displayed, to go have a fine-grained look and go into that and examine what has been displayed when, how, and where. So that's what I call internal data, because that's in-house. Yeah, but then we can put this together with external data. Some demographics. Well, depending on where the store is, the demographics will look completely different, or the economy, medium income, unemployment rate, for example. These are resources that are available on a very fine-grained level that I can use. Then some other information, external information, such as weather, very important for certain products, probably not important for other products. And then finally, social media. I can mine all the buzz that's on the social media, the sentiment, and put this together. So, but the important point here is that we need to be systematic to look into that. And it's not anecdotal information. Yeah, anecdotal information means I think that on a Thursday morning I might be seeing more seniors than young adults. Well, that's not data. Let's somehow measure this. Let's somehow get the knowledge from there. And the knowledge, as I described, has to be transferred into insight. So this is where analytics and where Scala S really comes into play. So we take all the available data that is there, and when I say available data, most people get scared because they think, well, we have to have all of this information to even get started. No, absolutely not. What we absolutely need to know to get started is is location and point of sales and digital signage. That's the minimum data set. And from there, we can always build to the outside. But that's what we need to get started. And then when we add business goals, then we can come up with optimized messaging and do the automated analytics. Automated, I want to stress the point. It's important because the data can get very big and very complex fairly quickly, and even if you just use location, point of sales, and digital signage. So there has to be a large degree of automation, because to do this manually would be too labor intensive, which does not mean that we don't need any analysts and business people looking at it. Absolutely, we need this. This is not a replacement of business analysts. No, this is an extension. This helps them. One more word about business goals. Most retailers, restaurants, so our end clients will say, yeah, my business goal is to earn more money, to have a larger profit. Yeah, that's great. Everybody wants that. However, how do I want to achieve that? Is that I want to drive people, drive my customers from a item that is less profitable, has smaller margin, to an item that has a larger item? Or do I want to upsell? Do I want to increase my basket size, that people sell more? These are just a few possibilities. So and all of these will have a different effect on what the optimization will give you. How do I actually use digital signage in this context of all the other things to drive the desired customer behavior? So it's vitally important that the business goal is well defined. And all of that leads to an optimization cycle. So the first step is, excuse me for a moment, the first step is to use existing data, and here I've written a historical data, but it's pretty much the existing data that I have to train the algorithms, to say, okay, what happened in the past? And the algorithm, the adaptive learning algorithms, detect patterns and analyze the pattern and find out what is really significant, what are the signals in there. Then I use that data to identify the key relationships and the key factors between the different variables, and can now select the best messages for each location and time slot. When I say I can select, well, the system does this for you. That's what I mean. And generate optimized playlists for each location and each time slot. So to say what happens in the past is an indicator of future performance. So if I detect something that works in the past, then I want to reuse this again. The next step is deployment, to use the target optimized digital content and display it over the digital signage system. And when I just say this here, okay, we display this, but think about a network with 100 stores, or probably even several hundred stores, several locations per store. That means we need to have a versatile and very stable and very powerful digital content management system. And Scala obviously falls into that category, where you can use this very comfortably in a stable way to push the content out to the players and not really worry about what's happening. So because if you're only talking about a few screens, well, that's pretty simple, so no, I'm done here. But in particular, when it gets into massive deployments, and that's really where IS shines, then you need a heavyweight system that really can pull off the job. And then finally, we deploy this, and then we measure what happens. We got the sales result, the point of sales data, and determine what is the change in basket size. What are the conversions here? And do I upsell more? What is happening? And we feed back the results into the optimization loop for the next iteration here. A question I'm typically get asked is, how long does an iteration take? Well, it depends a little bit, but on actually how much data do you have available and how much data do you generate per day. But typically, I would say an iteration is something between 2 and 4 weeks that seems to be a sweet spot for most businesses, at least to start with, and then you can even optimize that. On the other hand, most businesses are not capable to change their internally change their marketing in a much more frequent way. But that is something when we run through projects that we look at and then recommend a good iteration size here. So what's happening is that the system, Scala IS, continually learns from the results and then uses all the data, the updated data, to recommend improvements to digital marketing strategy. So before I run into an example and get more specific, so what happens is, as a summary, the adaptive learning algorithms identify key relationships, they select optimal digital content, and then predict the best outcome and say, what is likely to happen? How much more am I going to sell? Or how will my upsell change under these circumstances? And then we can measure against this and see, did this really happen? How far are we off, if any? Did we surpass it or did we miss the line? And then use the optimization to go even further in that direction. So this is what a typical digital signage schedule looks like. I call it calendar driven because in the end what's happening here, yeah, we have some anecdotal information and we know we target some generic audience, and then probably in the evening we target different audience because we know that's slightly different. On a Saturday, yeah, there might be more teenagers in my cell phone store, and I want to do a little bit for them, so I look more at gaming related ads, something like that. But in the end, it's calendar driven and it's anecdotal driven, and we want to get away from that. And if we use Scala as we use predictive analytics, we can come up with a pretty sophisticated target optimized schedule that takes into account all the data that I have available and then generates the best schedule for my situation for each location and each time slot. So to summarize, we want to use targeted advertising to create a customer experience that is positive for the customer and also entices the customer to act in a way that is positive for me as a business owner. And we do this by showing relevant information. So we decrease the advertising clutter, because there's nothing worse than going to a store and seeing something that's absolutely not relevant to me, because then I tune out. And that's the same thing that we all do when we get junk mail. Hey, junk mail by definition of it is junk, it's just clutter. But if we are able to create targeted advertising that informs the customer, that shows things relative to the customer, we create a shopping experience. As Marcy said earlier, close to 40% of customers are willing to spend money if it improves their shopping experience. So we create customer loyalty, which is extremely important, in particular when I throw in the words like showrooming that Marcy also alluded to. And so by using all the data, all the available data, all the transactional data, we can use analytics now to drive the customers into a direction, into action that we really want them to have. So, and also, as I said at the very beginning, digital signage lives in an ecosystem, so it's vitally important that we use all the information in this ecosystem to make digital signage a very effective channel in the omni-channel marketing strategy. So that's all for me. Megan, if you want to take this back. And I see there are three. I see questions on.
Yep.
So I probably.
Sure. Stefan, did you want to start with some questions? We have a few for you.
Yes, yeah, I see them here.
Okay.
So let me start. The first question is, can analytics help finding optimal screen placement? Yes, to a certain extent. Obviously, you have to have, when you start in an environment, you have to have some physical environment and then test out what works. If you, for your end customer, for the retailer or for the restaurant or whatever your vertical might be, if you already have some data, we can analyze that and say, well, those screens seem to work better than other screens. I mean, the location of those screens seem to be work better than the other screens. The important thing is that we need some underlying data and probably some experimentation that shows us what is more effective and what is less effective. One example, if I always show the same thing on all the screens, well, obviously I can't distinguish if the screen close to the door is more effective than the screen at the back of the store. But if I rotate contents between those two screens, well, then I might have that. So the answer is, yeah, analytics can potentially help that. Another question is, and I picked this one because I've been talking a lot about retail and so on. The question is, can analytics help an employee corporate network? Yes, it can. The important part, again, is that you get data that allows to draw conclusions, so feedback data. If you push out messages and you have some mechanism, for example, through questionnaires or any activity, for example, that employees enroll into something that you can measure and that you can feed again into analytics, yeah, then you can see what works and what doesn't work. If it's simply a one-way street, you use digital signage to push out messages to your employees without getting the feedback in one way or the other, then it can't work because there is no feedback loop here. So let me look what else is.
Stefan, if you want, I can. Marcy has a question here.
Yeah. Why don't we hand it over for Marcy so that I have a chance to read all the other questions?
Absolutely. Marcy, go ahead. I believe I sent you a question.
Yep, no problem. So it says, I continue to hear retail engagement and analytics in store is moving to mobile platforms as opposed to digital signage. How does Scala recommend positioning signage as a superior experience to mobile? I actually don't think that I would ever say that it's a superior experience. I think that our opportunity when it comes to digital media is, again, I keep going back to the overall strategy. The overall customer experience. And I think that we need to realize that we play one part of that experience. And through, again, I'll say it, our open platform, I do think that's important because it's allowing us to engage with mobile, to engage with tablets. There's a partner we're working with right now who actually has a technology, Bluetooth, that's live underneath an application. So what that allows us to do is as we enter the store, now I'm triggering the larger digital signage for that personalized experience. I can now pull up exactly what that consumer was looking at or, viewing and reviewing in their application. And so I think it's really to understand how digital plays one part of that customer experience and how by putting everything together, including print media, I have to tell you, that entire story, pulls together, but absolutely digital media, in my opinion, must be a piece of that because I think it's probably one of the most impactful pieces, and we have research to show that. But yeah, I would definitely say I don't think I'd go in saying that digital signage is superior to mobile, but I would say that it's one integral part of the customer experience.
Awesome. Okay, Stefan, if you want to answer, I think you have a few more questions coming through. If you're there, I think you're on mute.
I'm
on?
I'm sorry. I was just coughing. That's why. Yeah, I'm still here. I do apologize. I was just coughing. That's why I muted myself. So sorry. I'm here back again. So I'm gonna combine 2 or 3 questions that ask how is Scala as sold and delivered, and what is Scala as? Is that a application, or what is that? And also about there's a question. Do I need a module for each player, and so on. So let me describe this. Scala IS is analytics as a service. So it's not a module that you push or that you install, but it's a software as a service. And there are some minor things that have to be adjusted in the content manager, but generally it's a software as a service. As far as how many modules you need, or how many licenses, I interpret it that way. So it's the way we have structured it. It depends on how many locations do you want to analyze separately. And when I say location, we have called them intelligence points. Let's say just two examples here. You have one big department store, and you want to analyze the data for each of the 10 departments separately. That would be 10 different intelligence points. On the other hand, you have 20 stores, and they fall into 2 cohorts where 8 of the stores are fairly similar, and 12 of the other stores are also fairly similar in terms of behavior and so on. You could group them together. That would be only 2 intelligent points here. So it depends on your situation how the analytics is set up, and we will and would work with you through that process to determine what is the best solution, what makes sense from an analytics point of view. Because we don't want to overkill things, but in terms of resolution, but on the other hand, we also don't want to leave money on the table, that in that sense that we underanalyze the situation, and then we end up in the same situation as we are right now, that we don't have good data and don't have good feedback loops, and just average things, and then digital signage again can't deploy its full potential. Okay. Are there other questions for Marcy?
I'm just searching through the panel right now. I have one more question for you, Stefan, and I'll send it over right now.
Yep. Okay. So the question is, if you can find environmental data collected through biometrics, can Scala use this data live? So let me rephrase that first, how I understand the question. So if you have any environmental and biometrics data, I assume that you mean age group and gender information. So that can be used in 2 ways. It can be used directly to generate triggers, and then simply trigger certain actions on the screen. So display certain contents, predefined contents. For example, if a woman age group 35-45 is looking at something, you might want to display a different ad than if a senior age group, let's say 55-75, a male senior is looking at the ad. Yeah, absolutely, that's a trigger. But we can also use the information to feed this in the analytics, and then put this together with point of sales and say, yeah, okay, now I displayed this ad. Did this really make a difference or not? Or if I have several ads, if I have 3 ads for the woman age group 35-45, and I display them in a certain way, does that make a difference? Is that better, or if I only instead of displaying only one? So the answer is yes, absolutely. That is very valuable information. If you have it, we can use this to feed this into Scala IS, but also to use this to directly trigger the contents on the screen. Good. So I hand it over to Megan again.
Yep, one more question just came in right now. But I'm just going to say that we're going to keep the chat open for another 10 minutes after we end the call. So if you have any additional questions, you can enter them, and we'll have them answered via email. If you have any more questions, either put them in now, or we'll give you 10 minutes to put them in, and we will answer them afterwards. Unless,
Okay, here's another question. Does Scala IS work with other top 10 software and hardware systems, for example, Reflect 4Winds and so on, and what is required? When we talk to end customers, retailers, restaurants, and so on, there's a broad spectrum of clients there. And some of the clients don't know anything about analytics. They don't have any capability about analytics. They've never tried this. And there we can provide the full service and say, well, absolutely, we help you from the very beginning to make sure that your data is organized in a proper way over getting the data into IS and then setting up the full system. So it's a full service. On the other hand, where you have what I call the rocket scientists, they already work with analytics partners either in-house or use external partners. And they say, yeah, we know all of that, but now we want to put this together with digital signage. For those on the other side of the spectrum, for the rocket scientists here, we will help them to connect those different systems. So our business model from a Scala point of view is very flexible there, that we will work with whoever is already there. And if nobody's there, well, then we come in as a full-blown analytics partner there from that point of view. And here, obviously, in my presentation, I described the situation where people know less or have less in-house capabilities or are not working with a partner. So pretty much, what does our service look like? The last question I have on here is, what type of services does Scala IS require? Who provides those, Scala or its partners? It will be, and is, when you get into that, it is a combination thereof. Because all the analytics side will be provided by Scala, but some hands-on tasks will be provided by partners, and that means it really depends on how the business relationship is handled currently between the partner and the end customer. If, for example, our partners run the entire network, then our partners will run the network also in terms of content and managing the playlists and the schedules and so on. Then our partners will be much more involved than, for example, if the end customer does it on its own. Then they will be more involved. So it's very difficult for me to really give a very specific answer here, but I think what should have come across is that it depends a little bit on how exactly the digital signage network at the end customer is run.
Yeah, I think to jump in there, of our partner network, we have over 450 globally, and one of the advantages is that we allow our partners to be great at what they're great at. And so if one partner is fantastic at installation and service, but really don't want to get into the content management side, that's fine. Somebody else is amazing at content and content management, but really doesn't have the installation base. And so we found a few partners who have already been hand raisers, hey, listen, we really want to be out there representing the analytics. And so we've embraced those partners. And so I think that's where Stefan's saying, depending on what the end customer's need are, depending on where you're at in the partner portfolio, if this is something that you'd like to take on, raise your hand and let us know. If this is something that is a partner, you have a client and you're doing work with them already, but it's just not something you want to take on, we can go ahead and support you in that. We can hook you up with another partner that's really, strong in that suit. So just, give us a call and we can kind of mix and match as needed.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's all the questions we have for now. I am going to leave the chat window open for about 10 minutes. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, and I will get Marcy or Stefan to answer them via email. If you have any more questions, you can either email us, marketing@scala.com, or Marcy Petzer or Stefan Menger, whose emails are showing on the screen right now. Thanks again for joining us today, and have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.